to express the opinion of the management of WOR-TV, here is Peter Leone, Vice President and General Manager.
Crime victims often get a life sentence. Look at these women. Acid was thrown in their faces. The person who did it is now eligible for parole, but the women will never be the same again. Our criminal justice system many times ignores the victims, yet it bends over backwards to make sure the criminal is treated fairly. Well, we think it's time we paid more attention to the victims. Assemblyman John Girgenti of Passaic County has introduced a Crime Victims Bill of Rights. It's a basic bill that spells out what crime victims and witnesses are entitled to. It allows them to make telephone calls, provides for immediate medical help, requires separate waiting areas so victims and witnesses don't have to face the defendant or his lawyer before court, requires written information on the various public and private victims services available, calls for prompt notification on the outcome of trials and grand jury proceedings, and requires that property be returned to victims quickly. If these rights are violated, the victim can sue in court for up to $500. For too long, victims have been neglected and allowed to fall through the cracks of the legal process. Assemblyman Girgenti's bill will establish uniform procedures to treat crime victims fairly. We believe it should be passed. I'm Peter Leone.
We invite your comments on our editorial opinion. Write WOR-TV Editorial, Box 9, Secaucus, New Jersey, 07094.
It's our greatest sale ever. Newmark & Lewis's Holiday Weekend Sale. Every item in every Newmark & Lewis store is marked down to our lowest price ever. All TVs on sale. Video recorders on sale. Major appliances on sale. Audio equipment on sale. And personal computers at the lowest prices ever. And we'll always beat the competition's price.
Don't forget, I personally guarantee it.
The Newmark & Lewis Holiday Weekend Sale, now through Monday.
It's Giant Carpet, announcing Giant's biggest Veterans Day sale ever now through Monday. Find $3 million worth of first quality broadloom reduced with carpets from America's most famous mills at half price. And remember, Giant prices always include padding, installation, and delivery. No hidden extras. For Giant Carpet savings, hurry to Giant Carpet in Rochelle Park, Little Falls, Woodbridge, and Springfield, New Jersey. And now in Farmingdale, Long Island.
Mystery.
What's happening?
Action. Adventure with America's favorite teenage detectives, the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew.
We're going down.
Mayday.
This is an emergency.
Hair racing stories for the entire family.
Look, voodoo. I think we're dealing with a psycho.
Did you go see footprints?
The Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew Mysteries, Saturday at 11. After years in exile, he has returned to face his final challenge and his archenemy. Sean Connery and Audrey Hepburn are Robin and Marion, Monday at 8:30.
This is CNN Headline News. You're in tune with the world.
The United Nations hears of intended American aggression in Central America. Good morning, I'm Dave Walker. The Nicaraguan ambassador to the UN is accusing the United States of planning a Grenada-style invasion of his country. The charge came at an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council last night. It follows U.S. charges 2 Soviet freighters in Nicaragua could be carrying advanced weaponry. The second Soviet ship appeared yesterday, adding to tensions between the two nations. Our coverage began with CNN's Jeannie Mose at the United Nations.
Inscribed on my list.
Nicaragua's ambassador painted a picture of an imminent Grenada-style invasion. He cited U.S. spy plane overflights and what the Nicaraguans consider to be threatening statements by U.S. officials. Statements prompted by reports of Soviet MiG aircraft being shipped to Nicaragua. Categorically false, said Ambassador Chamorro.
We wish to declare that no aircraft of that sort has been unloaded. All of this information which the U.S. government has been leaking is designed to set up the atmosphere in preparation for a direct military attack against our territory.
Just as Nicaragua's ambassador said there were no MiGs, the U.S. representative said there are no plans for an invasion.
It is totally without foundation.
The U.S. representative pointed out that Nicaragua has come repeatedly before the UN to complain of invented invasions. Last month, Nicaragua's leader even set a date, October 15th, that came and went without event. The U.S. and Nicaragua were the only countries to take the floor. Earlier in the day, the Soviet ambassador tried to lay to rest U.S. fears that MiG fighters have been shipped to Nicaragua. Did the Soviet Union send any MiGs to Nicaragua?
No.
And one last question. Does the Soviet Union really think that an invasion might be imminent from the U.S.?
Well, you better ask that in Washington. They know better.
How would you...
But I think it would be a disaster if they did it.
Well, how would you...
Because this would be a war, not a walkover.
Yet another not-so-veiled reference to the U.S. invasion of Grenada. Jeannie Moe, CNN at the United Nations.
Military men were more visible in the streets of Managua after government leaders called on the population to defend Nicaragua's capital against a possible American invasion. The crisis has steadily deepened as a Soviet freighter berthed at the Pacific port of Corinto continues to unload a cargo of what U.S. officials suspect may be high-performance MiG fighter aircraft. Sonic booms from overflying spy planes have increased Nicaraguan fears that the U.S. may follow through on threats to take military action if they believe the MiGs have arrived. Leaders of the Marxist-Leninist Sandinista government, denying that the MiGs are here, have called on the whole population to mobilize. Particularly targeted are the more than 20,000 high school students who at this time of year normally are sent to harvest the coffee crop. Now they've been ordered to help defend the capital of Managua. At the Heroes and Martyrs of Batahola High School, students were receiving specific instructions on the sectors of the capital they may be called on to defend. Elsewhere in Managua, the population is in an aggressive mood. This man shouted from the sidewalk that Nicaragua is for Nicaraguans, not for the Americans. A soldier asserted he was willing to lay down his life to defend the capital.
Nicaragua has been through crises with the United States before. America is financing rebels fighting along the borders. But while there is real tension here, there is also time out for political satire.
President Reagan's re-election was unwelcome here because the Sandinistas blame him for trying to undermine the Nicaraguan government. At the Managua rally called to mobilize the population, the president was mocked by Sandinistas who had acquired a Reagan mask. America's belligerency towards Nicaragua in recent days has confirmed fears here that in his second term, President Reagan might do even more to undermine the government than the covert activities he's been financing. Peter Arnett, CNN, Managua, Nicaragua.
Parts of Potosi, Missouri are being sealed off this morning to prevent looting in the wake of a tornado that's damaged several businesses there. The twister ripped through the town yesterday, killing at least one person and hurting dozens more. Travelers in the Rockies are being warned to be careful of the snow that's piled as high as 2 feet in some areas. Heavy snow plummeted the mountains of Colorado, the Sierra Nevadas, and the Northwest yesterday. Most of the white stuff is expected to fall today in Oregon, Colorado, and Utah. This is CNN Headline News. The crew of the Space Shuttle Discovery is readying an onboard naval satellite for launch. It's scheduled to be put into orbit in about 3 hours. Yesterday, the astronauts used the Frisbee method to propel a Canadian satellite into space, spinning it sideways out of the cargo bay. If today's launch goes as well, Discovery's cargo bay will be empty for the retrieval of 2 other stranded satellites. The shuttle's competitor, Ariane, has delivered 2 satellites into orbit. The European rocket blasted off from its jungle launch pad in French Guiana yesterday. Both of the satellites will be used by American companies. The first Ariane satellite launch took place last August. The 2-acre Vietnam War Veterans Memorial in Washington is now complete. A 7-foot bronze statue was unveiled at the site yesterday as part of a National Veterans Day weekend salute. CNN's Francis Harden was there.
Some 4,000 Vietnam veterans, their families, friends, and active duty servicemen came to see the latest addition to the Vietnam Memorial. They approved of what they saw.
For me, it's emotional. I think it says a lot about us, and it's, the unity with, the brotherhood, and, guys sticking together, and everybody around here. So it's all of us.
I think it's benefited every veteran here. It's a recognition that they've long deserved, not just for myself, but for also for the guys on the wall.
The bronze 7-foot-high statue is of 3 young men, white, black, and Hispanic, representing the major American ethnic groups. American Indians, who also fought in Southeast Asia, honored all who died there with a song for fallen warriors. The unveiling marked the start of a weekend of ceremonies for Vietnam veterans, which will include a presidential visit. Friday afternoon, a wreath was placed at the foot of the statue by a group which tries to promote a positive image of the men and women who returned from the war in Southeast Asia.
I think it's part of the healing of America. I imagine next week, America is going to feel a little better about their Vietnam veterans, and Vietnam veterans are going to feel a little better about their America.
Chris Noel, who broadcast to Vietnam over Armed Forces Radio, agrees that the statue is part of the healing process.
I believe that the original Vietnam Veterans Memorial is a tribute to the dead, the men and women that died in Vietnam, and that this is a tribute to the living, those of us that have survived.
Frances Harden, CNN, at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, Washington.
Around the world, around the clock, this is CNN Headline News.
An expert on the joy of Christmas shopping.
How'd you like to have to pick out a Christmas present for me? You probably think I'm tough to please, right? Give me a break. I'm just like any other guy. I'd be thrilled to get this. A subscription to Sports Illustrated. What guy wouldn't? The writing's great. The photography's great. It's the #1 sports magazine in America, isn't it? And I'll tell you something else about this gift. It keeps coming every week, all year long. Look, for starters, I get this special double issue, the Sportsman of the Year. Then I get a good look at the best part of football season, the college ball games, the NFL playoffs, and the Super Bowl. With Sports Illustrated, I get pro and college basketball. I get baseball. I get hockey, boxing, golf. I even get bobsledding. And yeah, Sports Illustrated gives me tennis. Who is that guy? Listen, anyone who follows any sports at all has got to have Sports Illustrated. So how much is all this going to cost? Don't worry. Sports Illustrated has a special holiday rate. 54 issues for only $38.95. That's more than $13 off the regular subscription rate. You save 63% off the cover price. You won't even get billed till next year. And it's not like you have to go out of your way or anything. Just pick up the phone and call this number. It's toll-free. You don't hassle with crowds. You don't mess with sizes. You don't even have to pick out a card. Sports Illustrated will send you one so you can tell that special someone what's coming. What more could you want? All for only $38.95. And that includes next year's pro and college previews for football and basketball. So call 1-800-621-6200 and give Sports Illustrated for Christmas. It pays to be nice to people.
Actress Vanessa Redgrave says she is pleased with the jury's findings in her civil rights trial against the Boston Symphony Orchestra. She was awarded $100,000 in the breach of contract suit. Shirley McNerney has more.
In the courtroom, Redgrave showed no visible reaction, but afterwards she appeared happy and claimed victory.
And if the jury had found for the BSO no contract in the country would be safe, no one's job would be safe. Anybody for an unknown reason could cause the cancellation of a job and remove someone from work. So I am tremendously pleased. Because
Vanessa Redgrave was hired by the Boston Symphony Orchestra in 1982 as a narrator in Oedipus Rex. In 14 days of testimony, her lawyer argued that the contract was canceled because of her controversial support of the Palestine Liberation Organization. The attorney for the BSO said the contract was canceled because the orchestra received threats of violence and bloodshed. The jury deliberated for 8 hours over 2 days. One juror was excused because he said he couldn't remember enough of what happened and didn't hear well enough to make a decision. This left 5 jurors who reported their verdict at 11:20 today.
We didn't feel that they fired her because of her personal political views that they personally disagreed with. They had subscribers that refused to give money, they were looking at them, but not their own personal views.
I think the thing that I'm particularly pleased about is the jury's finding that nobody at the symphony, no trustee or no employee of the symphony, was motivated in any fashion in this whole process by any disagreement with Miss Redgrave's political views.
In canceling the contract, though, the jury said the BSO harmed Redgrave's career and awarded her damages.
Marvin and I, we had to explain what specifically I'd lost in that year and ask them to take that into their consideration. So I'm very pleased on that, too.
A 2-year-old Alabama girl is in critical condition in Pittsburgh's Children's Hospital after undergoing the nation's second heart-liver transplant operation. Kelly Cochran is expected to be in intensive care for at least a week. The first dual heart-liver transplant was performed on little Stormy Jones, who is now fully recovered from last February's operation. Baby Faye is hungry, alert, and just cruising along. A hospital spokesman also says the infant is showing no signs of rejecting her baboon heart. Doctors in Loma Linda, California say the longest living recipient of an animal heart may be able to go home in 2 months if all continues to go well. A New York father is taking a hospital to court because it won't let him visit his son. The teenager has been in a coma since attempting suicide last September. CNN's Pat Dolan reports.
Inside Nassau Hospital, 13-year-old Billy Albanese has been lying in a coma since trying to hang himself 7 weeks ago, and doctors fear serious brain damage. For 51 days, Billy's father, Vito, lived in his son's hospital room, massaging his arms and legs and talking to Billy in an effort to revive him. Albanese also did some complaining that hospital officials were allowing his son to vegetate instead of trying hard to arrange for intense physical therapy.
He needs physical therapy. He gets about 20 minutes a day in Nassau Hospital. These places that are geared for coma patients work on these patients 10 to 12 hours a day, constant movement.
After 6 weeks, hospital officials obtained a court order barring Albanese from visiting Billy and charging him with abusing staff members and being physically rough with his own son. Albanese says the hospital is conducting a vendetta.
I feel that I'm being discriminated against, harassed, and I should be with my boy because my boy needs me.
The hospital felt it was in the best interest of the child and the professional staff. Believe me, it was not something we didn't want to do. We have never done it before. It's not something you do lightly.
When young Billy attempted to take his own life, he was in one of several foster homes where he'd been living since his parents were divorced. So technically, the County Department of Social Services was his legal guardian. Now, Albanese believes officials are trying to avoid the steep cost of sending his son to a facility that could provide the kind of intense therapy which he feels just might bring Billy around. Hospital and county officials deny cost as a factor since Billy's bills are paid by Medicaid, and they say they're doing their best to find a suitable treatment facility for the boy. Pat Dolan, CNN, Mineola, New York.
In Clareton, Pennsylvania, a Lutheran minister who was fired from his church is daring police to bodily remove him from his pulpit. The Reverend D. Douglas Roth has been sentenced to 90 days in jail for ignoring a judge's order to leave the premises. A new movie about a killer Santa Claus is drawing protests from parents across the country, but action from parents in Milwaukee. CNN's Andrew Holtz reports on the controversy over Silent Night, Deadly Night.
The night before Christmas, when all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse.
Silent Night, Deadly Night is the story of a tortured child who grows up to be a mass murderer. And what's got some people upset that this killer wears a Santa Claus outfit as he stalks his victims. When television commercials for Silent Night, Deadly Night aired in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the response was angry calls, letters, and protests.
Jingle all the way.
The protests have so far failed to prevent theaters from screening the movie, but organizer Kathy Eberhardt did claim a partial victory.
We have managed to get all the commercials taken off every station in Milwaukee now, and that really makes us feel good.
Protesters contend the killer Santa will poison the minds of young children, replacing joyful anticipation of Christmas presents with gruesome terror that an evil Santa will climb down the chimney to kill their family. But producer Ira Richard Barmack says the protesters missed the mark.
The lady in Milwaukee who thinks that we are frightening 4-year-old children doesn't know anything about the rating system. We're
clearly an R picture. We want an R. We wouldn't solicit anything under an R.
Barmack agrees Silent Night is definitely not for kids. And ironically, he expects the protest will actually boost box office sales.
And I feel guilty about that because I have a suspicion that the lady who's leading these protests, or the group of people who are leading this protest, are sincere. And I'm not comfortable with so-called profiteering off that.
Nevertheless, Barmack does not apologize for the horror picture he says pokes both fear and fun at the sacred cow of Christmas. Andrew Holtz, CNN, Hollywood.
More news after this.
Let Christy Lane touch your home and family with 21 of the most beautiful songs of Christmas. The sweetest voice this side of heaven.
Away in a manger, no crib for a bed. Silent night, holy night.
These are my favorite Christmas songs.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. Hark the herald angels sing. Glory.
Christy makes all the treasured Christmas songs come alive again.
Ho, 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 who wouldn't go?
Songs of happiness and joy.
Click, click, down through the chimney with good Saint Nick. I'll have a blue Christmas.
No singer today performs them with so much feeling and beauty as does Christy Lane.
Pretty ribbon of blue. Oh Lord, if you're there, help me in.
The Man from Galilee, the greatest song since Silent Night. A wonderful gift for this and many years to come. Here's how to order.
Album $7.98, 8-track or cassette $9.98. Use your credit card. Call 800-453-2900, 453-2900, or save COD. Write Christy Lane 21 Christmas Songs, Madison, Tennessee. That's Christy Lane 21 Christmas Songs, Madison, Tennessee, or call 800-453-2900.
It's 19 minutes past the hour. Time to check the latest sports.
I'm Tom Kirkland, CNN Sports. Once the Edmonton Oilers took the National Hockey League Stanley Cup away from the New York Islanders last spring, I guess they figured they now had license to go out this season and just never lose again. Or maybe that's just the way it looks. Friday night at the Cap Center in Landover, Maryland, Glenn Sather's Slick Oilers ran their unbeaten streak to 15 games, 12 wins and 3 ties. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the best start in National Hockey League history. The usual red lighters once again on the prowl. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, scored twice and had 4 assists. 3 of those passes went to line mate Yari Curry, who got the 3-goal hat trick. That combined effort treated the Oiler fans to an 8-5 win over the Washington Capitals. And a wild hockey affair in New York's Madison Square Garden, the Rangers hosting the New York Islanders, and as usual when these two New York clubs do battle, a playoff atmosphere prevailed. Well, the Rangers rallied from a 4-0 deficit, tied it, then just 57 seconds into the overtime, rocket-fast Ranger Reijo Ruotsalainen broke in alone and beat a sprawling Rolly Melanson, and the Rangers had a scintillating 5-4 overtime win over the Islanders. Elsewhere, Flyers shut out the Blues 6-zip, Jets beat the Canucks 7-5, and the LA Kings edged Buffalo 3-2. 2 fights also making headlines. The first one, a legitimate one in Las Vegas. Larry Holmes is now 46-0 by virtue of a tougher-than-expected 12-round TKO of James Bone Crusher Smith. Holmes retains his IBF heavyweight title. But for the fight everyone will talk about for a while, go to the Boston Garden. The Celtics whipped the Philly 76ers 130-119. What a ball game for Larry Bird. 42 points before a third-quarter ejection for fighting with another all-star, Dr. J. Julius Erving. The 2 locked arms going down court.
Bird called for an offensive foul. Moments later, the two went at it again. This time, Sixers center Moses Malone came in and held Bird while Irving scored heavily with 3 hard right hands, with Bird unable to defend himself. Both benches then emptied, both players ejected for fighting. Elsewhere, the Kings beat the Nets 101-99. Milwaukee pounded Indiana 122-105. In overtime, the Jazz beat the Warriors 125-117, and the Lakers better than Portland 130-126. I'm Tom Kirkland, CNN Sports.
James Cagney is in the hospital again, but doctors at New York's Lenox Hill Hospital say the 85-year-old actor will probably get to go home in a few days. Cagney had to be admitted because of fluid in his lungs. His condition now is stable. A new swashbuckling musical hopes to take Broadway by storm. The Three Musketeers will open tomorrow night in New York City. The production features lavish costumes and sets and even a live horse. Recapping the hour's top stories, here are the CNN headlines.
Tension mounts between the U.S. and Nicaragua. Reports from Managua say a second Soviet freighter has arrived in Nicaragua and 3 others are on the way. And for the second day in a row, Nicaragua claims a U.S. spy plane flew over major Nicaraguan cities. At a UN Security Council meeting, Nicaragua accused the U.S. of planning a Grenada-type invasion. The council took no action during the session. Tornadoes whirled through the Midwest last night, ripping through a shopping center in Potosi, Missouri. 1 person is dead, at least 20 injured, and 6 inches of snow blanketed the Utah mountains. Wintry weather warnings are posted throughout the West. And the crew of the space shuttle launched a Canadian relay station into space yesterday. They'll attempt to launch a second satellite from Discovery's cargo bay later today. With the latest headlines, I'm Elliot Weiser.
Stay tuned. The news continues.
Franklin Library proudly confounds the experts with a revolution in publishing. Goethe, Hardy, Hawthorne, 50 of the world's great books in a remarkable collector's edition are yours for $30. $35. $35. No, for only $12.50 each. Less than the cost of many ordinary hardcover books. Each masterpiece individually designed, fully bound with hubbed spine, handsome end papers, gilded edges, superb illustrations, fine milled paper to last for generations. $12.50 each. Simply call 1-800-453-6100. Franklin Library will send you each month another volume of the Collector's Library, each only $12.50. Order by credit card or pay COD with a $1 service charge. You may return any book for any reason within 30 days. The fine library of your dreams is only 1 phone call away. Call 1-800-453-6100.
In economic news, the nation's wholesale prices are down 0.2%, a third consecutive monthly drop and the longest string of decreases in 17 years. A drop in the price of new cars led the decline, as CNN's Robert Vito reports.
The Labor Department said the decline in the index of producer prices was due in large part to cars and trucks. Prices of newly introduced 1985 models did not rise as much as expected compared to September closeout prices. Prices for new cars, foreign and domestic, sold in the U.S. actually rose 5.5%, but they would normally rise 6.7% at this time of the year.
It's still very much a seller's market. Cars aren't any better bargain than they were 6 months ago.
Financial analysts such as David Littman say the demand for new cars is so strong right now that he believes it's still a tough time to buy a new car and negotiate a price because it's a seller's market. But Littman predicts that during calendar year 85, it could become a buyer's market.
In January, February, it may be a bit more of a buyer's market.
Better buys for individuals.
Probably easier to get delivery of the vehicle he wants, options, prices more in his favor.
Auto dealers generally say they were encouraged that the price of new cars did not rise as much as expected.
More encouraging than that is the fact that it seems that interest rates are continuing to ease, and as a result, if the banks continue to follow the trend of lowering their interest rates, I think the car buyer can expect to find lower prices and pretty good payments.
GM dealer George Glassman predicts that a buyer's market in 1985 could bring along with it better bargains, increased new car sales, and an overall improved economy. Robert Vito, CNN, Detroit.
After years of singing with groups, Patti LaBelle is now out on her own. She's currently winding up her acclaimed Over the Rainbow concert tour. CNN's Bobby Batista has this report.
With 7 cities left on her 55-city tour, Patti LaBelle is still pleasing the crowds. There's no doubt the woman can sing, but during the filming of her first feature film, A Soldier Story, she had doubts about the actress in it.
When it was time for me to act, I said, I can't do this. I said, I got really nervous, and they had to call doctors because I lost my voice. It was like I was getting ready to sing. I lost my voice when I had to speak, not when I had to sing. Anyway, they told me just to be calm and just put Patti LaBelle out of your mind and become Big Mary.
The queen of rock and soul for more than 20 years, Patti LaBelle recalls a phone call from a certain piano player she once worked with back when she was known as Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells.
I got a call from a friend of mine and said, Patti, it's Reggie. I said, hi, Reggie. I said, what are you doing? He said, I want you to come to my show tonight. I said, where are you? He said, at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. I said, what are you doing at the Spectrum? What are you doing? He said, I'm Elton John. I said, oh. I said, break my face. I said, Reggie. I said, you're Elton John? I said, you made it before I did, you creep.
Grateful for the accomplishments she has achieved in her career thus far, Miss LaBelle would choose to be a faceless singer if she could do it all again.
I think it's sad for Linda Ronstadt and for Dusty Springfield, who have wonderful voices, to be categorized and to be looked upon as just white singers when they're just singers, period. And when Patti LaBelle, because she's black, she's looked on as an R&B singer, when she's just a singer, period. And I had this idea, if I had a chance to do it over again, I would just put the records out with no picture and let them wonder what she is.
Bobby Batista, CNN, Atlanta.
That's our report for this half hour. I'm Dave Walker. Around the world every half hour, this is CNN Headline News.